Welcome to the first episode of Bodhisattva Gallery's 10th anniversary of Jewels of Newar Art 2011 exhibition. Today we have Ms. Anjana Shakya, co-founder of Bodhisattva Gallery, and Mr. Prajwol Man Shakya, director of Bodhisattva Gallery with us, who will be sharing about their experience on how this exquisite exhibition came about. Ms. Shakya is not just a co-founder of Bodhisattva Gallery, but she is a versatile and a dynamic woman with experience in many fields. She is a founder and chairperson of Himalayan Human Rights Monitors, founder and ex-chairperson of Beyond Beijing Committee and Alliance Against Trafficking of Women and Children in Nepal (ATWIN), ex-co-chairperson of Asia Pacific Women's Watch. She has been instrumental in many of legal changes for women's and children's rights in Nepal as well as globally. Ms. Shakya holds a bachelor's degree from Smith College, Massachusetts, and also has received Fulbright scholarship for her master's degree at Eastern Mennonite University, Virginia. She was awarded as a Remarkable Woman a Smith Continuum to celebrate 125th anniversary given to selected 30 women of Smith College. Our other guest is Mr. Prajwol Man Shakya, director of Bodhisattva Gallery, who also has an interesting background. He graduated from Antioch University, USA in International Relations. He did a semester abroad in Japan in Buddhism and Politics. He was awarded with prestigious Presidential International Scholarship, as well as he was a Bonner and a Boyd Scholar. He worked with Eleanor Holmes Norton, Congresswoman of Washington, D.C. Mr. Shakya has successfully curated the Hyatt Regency Kathmandu exhibition, which started on 2012. This is an annual and a biannual event. He was also a co-curator for Embodied Enlightenment 2016 and curator for Jewels of Newar Art 2019 second edition. Besides being an art lover and director of Bodhisattva Gallery, he is also a national and international medal holder in bodybuilding. He has won gold medal in Mr. Kathmandu 2018 and bronze medal in South Asia 2019. Welcome both of you in our podcast. The Jewels of Newar Art exhibition जुन तपाईहरुले 2011 मा गर्नुभएको थियो was of such a huge success. And it's so amazing to know that all the artworks were from the sole collection of your husband, late Mr. Prajwol Man Shakya, and your collection. Anjana, you are not from the art background, you are from the human rights background. So how did you get involved in this business? So could you please share with us on your experience on how this journey of exhibition started and the collection of your work started?
Namaste, and I'm so glad to be part of this podcast. When it started, we were married so young. We were only about 16, 17 when we got married, and I think we both learned from each other. We both influenced each other. For me, I'm not from art background, but I grew up in Newar and Basantapur and Makhan, which really gave me an experience which really, although not I'm totally directly involved, but at the same time I lived with it. And I think I was very interested in all the artwork, just amazed by our culture, tradition, and heritage. Although I would say, I was very different from my rest of my family or my extended family. But I think I was so interested because my best friend, Ellen Kuhn, her father was then the US ambassador to Nepal. And so I used to take him around whenever there is a festival, when whether it's Indra Jatra, whether it's any of the Jatras, I used to take him around, and I used to take his friends around, whoever his guests were, I used to also take them around. So I really had to learn to explain what it was all about, So I think that way I got interested in our heritage and learned a lot. And also learn from elders around there to ask about what it was all about. I think that's how I learned. But at the same time, I also majored in anthropology while I was in Smith College. So I think all of those really influenced me in terms of our living heritage, living culture and tradition. And I would say, to some extent, I think. Whatever I was learning, I was also influencing Purna while we were almost growing up. I mean, we were teenagers. So I think we both learned, but his background was more to do directly with art. His house was full of art. His community, created beautiful art. So he, not only at home but also within his immediate family, within his immediate community, he lived with art, and I think that's where we really got influence. And also I think traveling, that also helped us. And it really, we really started to see that how our heritage of especially the Newar art, that we see it in museums, we see it in temples and monasteries all over the world. So I think that's what we started to realize very young on, that our heritage is really, really very, very, very special. And that's how I think we really started to feel, especially, Purna coming from Patan. I think he also realized at that time, around mid 80s, he also realized that the situation of artists was really in a dire situation, because they whoever they were working with, they used to only pay in small installments. They never, they were not visible, they were not respected, they were totally invisible. And I think, that's where he really felt that if they are not respected, they are not visible, and they are not financially well off, the younger generation will not, take it. So I think that's where he started to really, that whole passion to, a drive, really a passionate drive to take this issue forward. Because, working with living art or contemporary Newar art was difficult when we started, because nobody was interested. For people take it for granted, because that's, they see it everywhere. They see, people see, statues being made all around, and so it's like, people didn't value it as much. So at a time when, it was in a really difficult stage, he really felt that, he has to bring a renaissance to this art, because otherwise, we'll be done. Whatever we inherited from our ancestors would not be taken forward.
So, since when did Mr. Shakya started the collection?
He started when he was about 25. He really, I think, when others would be so much interested with the modern lifestyle, he was really interested in tradition and culture and our heritage. So it was about, I would say, he was about 25 when he started it.
Okay, so he was quite young then. So
Yeah.
why, at that time, people would be more interested in doing highly earned business, or the business which is running smoothly. But then, as you mentioned, that the business at that time was going downhill. So
I think, that was the whole point, because I think it's not about the business, but it's about the artists, or even you could say, business downhill. The artists were not being treated well. That was the whole point. So I think he wanted to really make a difference, because he strongly felt that if he didn't intervene, because it's not about just him doing it. He wanted to change the whole trend of how artists are. That was his vision. That how can he really make the artist more respected, visible, financially stable. That was his vision. Because otherwise he felt that because this type of work and skill is from generation to generation. It's not something that you go to a college and study. It's really about, whatever your ancestors have done, or your father have done, the son and the family also do the same kind of work. So if it's all really passed on, the knowledge and skill is passed on. So if the younger generation don't find it attractive, then they are not going to do it. So that's where he felt that because his family was into art business, and he knew the value of art. So, but he was more interested in the with the living artists, not antiques, but with living artists. And so he really felt that if we don't change that, it'll be very difficult. And also he wanted to show to the world that lost wax process, the whole traditional lost wax process still continues and doing really well, in terms of quality. And that was where he really wanted to achieve with the team, achieve with the artist. He couldn't do it by himself. So that's where his focus was. So I think, when you're young, you have all these goals and aspirations, and you even if it is a difficult challenge, you still want to do it and prove it that it can be achieved. So I think that was what it was. And I got really involved with it, because whatever I earned, along with whatever he, his whatever he earned, we just put the money together to buy like whatever we could. At times, as I said earlier, it's really difficult doing this business, because people don't appreciate it as much. So, but it was so exciting to be, to see, something that is being created from just a sheet of wax, to the end where it is like absolutely gorgeous. So I think it's like it takes a long time, years. And I'm just amazed at the patience Purna had, because he would spend so much time with the artists. He would correct them, he will guide them. As soon as he drops the kids to school, we had two sons, so we have two sons. So as soon as they are dropped to school, he'll be with the artist, really working from the wax model to really to the very end of a final product. And it's really a long process. I don't think people even realize the kind of time that goes with this, creating one masterpiece. And he wanted just masterpieces. He believed that it has to be, masterpiece, because then each of the artists would earn from it. In the whole process, all of them would make money in that whole process. He never wanted it to be a replicas, or make multiple statues. So each one really are like unique on its own. That's where he wanted the beautiful statues, as well as he wanted the artists to be visible. They get financial benefit through this whole process. So that's what he was looking at. And also he wanted, because I think he saw how the business people were paying in small installments, and which made it dependent. The artists became dependent on the business people, because they couldn't do much with that money, so they always had to be dependent. So he also wanted to really make them independent, make them, they have like, not only respect in the community, they have financially well off, they can invest the money. I mean, I know somebody, even before the exhibition, he was able to buy his house. So I think that's where he wanted to really focus, that they become respected in the community, as well as financially well off.
So, did Mr. Shakya had planned from his earlier times that he wanted to do an exhibition, or it just came out of sudden? So, could you please share with us the preparation of exhibition?
So that was, I think, very interesting and exciting, because he was very involved with the statues. But I think not later on, actually, when he had the store, he was not as entirely involved with the, initially he was not involved with the powers. So basically, like, whoever came to sell in our store in Tamil, he bought it. He never bargained, he'll just buy it. It was late Deepak Joshi, because he was around living in Tamil. So I remember him buying from him. He bought his first power buy was of Lakshmi by late Preman Chitrakar. And it's so, but also in the house, Yugaratna Sakya, again, late Yugaratna Sakya, 10 years is just amazing now, just looking at, with just adding late to so many names. He used to come with his art pieces, as well as other artists' art pieces, and he will just buy it. I used to get so mad, because unlike most Newar families, usually, I mean, Newar families, what I have seen is that it's usually parents from both sides really help, but in our case, that was very different. So basically, we had to do everything, all the customs and traditions and pujas and rituals, everything. We both had to. We were both financially and otherwise responsible. So and on top of that, we had two kids, growing kids, and so he would not think of anything. He would just buy it. Even if we had to take a loan, he'll still buy it. And I used to get so pissed off. I used to, when you are traveling, I'm just going to sell pawas. If you're not going to sell them. But he used to say, just wait. I'll do a grand exhibition. Just wait and see. And, I never thought about it then, when this was like maybe, some 20 years back. And so when it happened, it was really, really exciting. He really, after a while, he started to really, also work with the Poa artist, and commissioned a lot of the work. I mean, most of the statues and pawas are all commissioned, except for very few, handful of them. It was not commissioned. We bought it when somebody came to sell it. But otherwise, it was, all commissioned. And also, he gave them some freedom, to be creative as much as they wanted.
So that's why your pieces are different?
Yeah, that's why the reason why we, even from the same artist, we have far more excellent pieces, because it was that support and that platform to really be creative, letting the artists really do it from their heart, rather than just telling them what to do. So it was a very interesting experience, being with him and going to the artist, visiting, whether it's a statue, making process artist, or, with the Poa artist, we'll be visiting them almost like every weekend. And, even my kids, even when they were growing up, they were like, every weekend, or even in like holidays, and mostly I think even Prajwol, even when more than Siddhartha, I would say that he would take the kids, we would go along and really start to make them familiar with our artwork, understand the nuances. He had that intuition, he had that lens which really saw the finest details. I used to say that you have an eagle eye, because he could see even from a distance. He will see the finest details. And so it was really, this whole process of collecting all of this. And I still remember, whenever he had to be sell, especially some of the pieces that he really, really loved. I mean, he just loved to be around with art. That's the way he was. He would, whether it's in the gallery, whether it's in the house, he had to be surrounded by art. Even our bedrooms, there would be no space in our house where there were no painting or statues. So even if he had to sell, some of the pieces, he would have really many, many sleepless nights. So that's how it was. Also, how the exhibition itself, my son, while both Pura and I was working with the human rights, with the Himalayan human rights monitors, especially during the armed conflict, we were extremely busy. We were working like maybe 20 hours a day. And so basically my son, Prajwol, was the one who took care of the store. But he came with me in US for his when I was a Fulbright scholar, and did his GED. And he got the opportunity to get into Antioch, and I think it was a choice we had to make. If he could go for a higher education, or we continue our store. And we felt his higher education was far more important. So when he came back, so we had to close down. When he was away, we had to close down the store, and we had the store more at a home level, within our home. And when he came back, we were looking at now again to reopen it. And the most important thing, what I felt at that time was, when he graduated, I asked him to stay in New York for a few more years, so that he could just gain experience. But what really amazed me was what he told me. He said, I'm not going to stay any longer here, because the time I spend away, it means that I'm also I'm not helping my community. I'm not helping with promoting my art and heritage and community, because each piece meant that it's not only a piece of art, but it also means many families that make that one piece of art, and that's the livelihood of people. So he said, I'm coming back. I said, okay, fine, if that's a choice, that's what you should do. So I think when he came back, then we started to look for stores. Prajwol, you want to add to that?
When I came back, we then decided, we'll reopen the store. And what I did basically was, we started looking for venues, but because we had such a, all the artwork that we have are so expensive and exclusive that we just couldn't open it just randomly to any place. So I talked with my friend, a school friend of mine, Nidesh Tuladar, and I just shared with him that I was looking for this place and we want to reopen the gallery. So he suggested Borough Mall Revisited, and I went and had a look at the place, and I talked with Gautam Ranerjee, the owner of Borough Mall Revisited, and said, we would like to rent a space, and this is the kind of artwork we would deal with. So Gautamji said, we had a meeting and said, let's have a look at the pieces you have. So I just took, one or two statues along with me just to show this is the kind of artwork we work with. So as soon as he saw it, he said, this is the place for you and you should open it immediately. And that's how we shifted to Borough Mall Revisited.
I remember, the piece we took. We both went together for that meeting, and it was our Silver Apsara, I think.
Yes.
It was a really beautiful piece by, the wax model by
Babukaji
Bhattacharya. It was really a beautiful piece.
And as soon as he said it's, he'll give us a space which was in between Sheikh Caroline and Siddhartha Art Gallery. So we started making the store, and I think that was the time when Sangeeta ji was introduced to us by Gautam ji, and I think once she saw the store we had, she was like, okay, you guys need to do an exhibition, because this is just amazing collection that I have seen. And as soon as she approached us for the exhibition, we said, let's do it. And
so it must have been like a dream come true for
dad, I think,
yeah.
because like mom said, he wanted to do it, and I know he wanted to do it for the longest time. So as soon as she approached us for the exhibition, we just said, okay, let's do it. So at that time, like mom said, because I was in the States, so we had to shut down the store. So but even then he was still buying, less of selling and a lot of buying. But for the exhibition, my cousin Ujay Bhattacharya, who's also a Pawa artist, said, there's a couple of artists that you should not miss, which is not in the collection. So what we did was then we started going to the artists whose works we didn't have and started commissioning new works for the exhibition. We told them this is what we're doing. We told them, the exhibition and 25 years collection. And so we started commissioning to a lot of these new artists.
So how many artists were involved in this exhibition?
In total, we had a total number of 65 pawas and 10 statues featured in the exhibition, and gold and coral works, with a number of 33 artists in total that was featured in the show.
So how many pawas you mentioned?
So we had a total number of 65 pawas and 10 statues.
So how less? Why was there less statues?
Well, we had the store, so the whole idea was we'll have a lot of the statues in the store, and because we needed wall space, a lot of the pawas would be in the at Siddhartha Art Gallery. So that's how we only featured 10 statues, and other statues were in the store. So when we started, coming back to commissioning, when we started commissioning, we kept the subject open. We didn't tell them, okay, we want this particular deity, or we want it in, we just said, we are commissioning it, you do the best you can. And what I and dad basically did was every time we had any free time, we just go and visit them. We'd go to the homes, and then dad would, from the scratch, like, they'll show us the sketch first. And then if you wanted any kind of changes, dad would give his feedbacks. And every time we had any free time we would just visit the artists to see what they were doing, how they were doing, and if if they needed any kind of suggestions, any places where because like mom said, dad had this eye where he would just see it, and he would notice that there's some kind of flaws in it. So he would give his feedbacks, so that the painting, especially we commissioned the paintings because we didn't, that's what we needed. So he would just look at it and say, okay, there are these flaws, we need to correct these. So that's how we started commissioning each piece, for the exhibition was commissioned. And the other thing what we did was we bought from resellers also.
So why was that?
Well, because
It's usually cheaper when you buy it from the artists.
I think
Instead of the resellers.
for a lot of the people, it's they try to always buy from the artist. But when you buy from reseller, what I've always noticed is you're not just buying a piece of art, but also the kind of work they do behind the scene. You know, the person who is commissioning the art piece, you know, they'll give the artist suggestions, they'll make corrections, they'll give, you know, the stories, the themes. So you're not just buying the artwork, but you're buying the dealer's vision as well. So every time when you buy from a dealer or a middle person, you are buying something that's different. You know, it's not just the artist's vision, but there's somebody else that gives a lot of input to it. So it makes things better. That's how I look at it. Because when we commission, we give our inputs, we give our vision, we give, you know, the stories. So it's always a collaboration between the artist and, you know, somebody else that makes the art piece much better, because it's you're getting a different perspective at the same time. The other thing that we did for the exhibition is we bought back paintings from Japan for that particular show, and I'll just share with you how we did that. I was in Japan during my college years. I was doing a study abroad program, and I was studying Buddhism and politics. And I was in Tokyo for 3 weeks, and I was staying at my father's friend's place, and I saw this beautiful Siddhi Ganesh there. I at that point of time, I just didn't even know who the artist was. I just loved it was a very small piece, and I just loved it. And I messaged dad that I saw this beautiful piece at his friend's place, and we should buy it. I just even did not know who it was. But dad was like, who's buy? I was like, I don't know. It's just a small painting, and we should just buy it. It's just so beautiful. So when we started,
So even you had interest in art from your earlier period.
I think, well, growing up in this house, you get used to looking at beautiful pieces only. And the way Dad always taught me was, he would take me to all these artists' place when I was young. Every holiday, every like Saturday, Sunday break we had, or even like a long holiday, we'd always...
Or even those days when you did go to school.
Yeah. Well, every you know,
when you dropped out from school.
Really? We'd like to hear more on that.
So anyway, so you know, he would take me to all the artists' place. So from the very young age, you know, I was introduced to this art, and be it the art that we had always in the house or in the store, or by just visiting artists. So you know, love for art was always there. Maybe it was just something we grew up with, so it's something that we feel it has to be in the house or in our daily lives. So anyway, coming back to Japan, I saw this, and you know, when we started buying back for the exhibition, I told that, you know, let's buy back the Ganesh also. So for the exhibition, we bought back the Siddhi Ganesh, that small painting from Japan, which I had seen, and apparently it was by Uday Charan Shrestha. And then we bought back a Shiva, a dancing Shiva by Dinesh Charan Shrestha, and a lot of paintings by Prajwol Man Shakya. So we bought back those so that, you know, my dad always said, you know, in that way people will get to see some of the older works that they had done. Like Prajwol Man Shakya had done those back in I think in the 80s or...
That's why you have a lot of his collection.
Yes. So his work in the 80s or the mid 80s, and by the time we did the exhibition, you know, the stylization has changed, the fineness has changed, because as you grow older, you cannot do a lot of fine detail work. So what he always felt was, you know, people should get a chance to see, and that's why the exhibitions that he later on did as well, is the whole idea was, you know, yes, there is buy and selling of the artwork, but people need to see the best quality artworks. Would you like to?
And also, you know, it's about the, I think, as I said earlier, you know, people don't pride in our, you know, artwork. So I think, you know, it's the whole point for him was to really, for younger generation to have the pride in their art and culture and tradition.
True, very true.
Yeah, because I mean, I think one of the things we have been like really been, you know, very whatever, popular, whatever, is that people want to see like what has been our creation, because they all know that we'll have some of the finest quality artwork, because we really want to show that our art still exists, and the best quality art still exists, and some of them has to stay here so that next generation can look at it and learn from it. So that's also another part where why he felt that they should be collection, and I totally support him, supported him, supported him. I really think that it was, that exhibition really made in such a grand way. But I think, just the exhibition was so interesting.
Yeah, it was a landmark exhibition at that time. So it's not that there were no exhibition, or there were exhibition, but then why was Jewels of Newar art different and was able to set a benchmark? I think we still have a lot to hear from both of you. So we'll continue our conversation in our next episode. Please stay tuned.